Evening, good night. Thank you very much for all coming here. Today is a great day. We are going to talk about guaranteed basic income and the program that we are planning along with the City of Healdsburg. It's a great night. It's a great moment for the organization, for the community, for the city, and for our partnership. So I would like to thank you very much for whoever is here tonight. And if you people are starting to arrive soon, and just to remind that this also is going to be available after the meeting, is going to be available for people who didn't have the opportunity to come to watch online later. So before we start, I just would like to pass the floor to our amazing interpreter, Julie, so she can give us some kind of instructions about the interpretation. Julie?
Thank you so much, Clayton, and welcome everyone to this meeting, which will be interpreted simultaneously. Any monolingual English speakers who would like to hear any Spanish comments or questions interpreted into English can listen to the English by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and choosing your language. You can also click mute original audio to hear only the interpretation. Muy buenas noches y bienvenidos y bienvenidas a la reunión. Esta reunión será interpretada simultáneamente. Si quiere escuchar en español, por favor haga clic en el icono del globo que se encuentra al pie de la página y elija su idioma español. También puede hacer clic donde dice Mute Original Audio para silenciar el audio original y escuchar solo la interpretación. Si desea hacer un comentario o una pregunta, con mucho gusto se la interpretaremos al inglés. Gracias.
Just regarding interpretation, it's always good to remind our friends, our community, that if you are seeing this presentation through Facebook or any other social network platform, you are not able to switch the language. So please come to Zoom. You have in the description of this video there in your Facebook. Please have access to the Zoom account so you are able to interact in a better way.
Y si está presente por medio de Facebook, no tendrá la opción de elegir el idioma español, así es que por favor encuentre el enlace de Zoom que está en el Facebook para poder escuchar en español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Julie. So today, as I talked a little bit, we're gonna talk about guaranteed basic income and a lot of different topics. We have a very good panelist here today, but I want to discuss with you our agenda for tonight. So at the first moment, we're gonna have some moderated discussion with the panelists with some questions that we prepared for us to talk about. After that, we are going to open the floor to have a session when the audience can go through questions and answers. And we intend to close this meeting by 7 p.m. So please, while you see the moderation discussion or some kind of presentation, please have your questions noted, and we are going to answer that during our Q&A session. So before we go to the moderated discussion, it's very important for us to share our objectives for tonight. We have two main objectives with this conversation tonight. The first one is to provide information to the community from practitioners, experts, and impacted community members about the potential benefits and evidence about universal basic income and guaranteed basic income pilots and the social safety net in the United States. And the second main objective is to create an opportunity for the public to ask questions and provide feedback about the upcoming Healdsburg Basic Income Pilot Program that's going to start very soon. So I would like to ask Jesus if we can start the presentation about our UBI, GBI, and the Healdsburg Pilot Program, so we can start talking. I'm not sure, before we do the presentation, I'm not sure if, yes, he's here. That's why I didn't do that. Before we start, it's very important for me for us to welcome on behalf of the City of Healdsburg, our friend and our partner in this project, Jeff Kay, who is the city administrator and who is here with us tonight. Sorry, Jeff, I didn't see you in my list here. That's why I didn't bring you before. And I would like to listen. He's gonna make some remarks for us. Jeff.
Thank you, Glyden, and good evening, everybody. Buenas noches. I will be brief. I appreciate your interest in getting to the experts, but I do appreciate the opportunity to say a few words, and I want to thank Corazón for putting on this event this evening. Guaranteed basic income is maybe not a new concept, but it is a new concept for cities. We're not always on the cutting edge of trying new things. And there aren't that many cities out there that have tried something like this. I'd like to share that really the impetus for this becoming a program in the City of Healdsburg was the interest from community members and community organizations that saw an opportunity earlier this year or last year when the city received a substantial amount of funding from the federal government through the American Rescue Program. And like any city manager, my first instinct is to hold on to all of that money and use it for all of our many needs that aren't funded. But I recognized, and many of you recognized, that we also had an opportunity to get some of those dollars out to people in our community who really do need that assistance and who have really suffered disproportionately under the pandemic in the last couple of years. So this is not an idea that was generated inside of City Hall, but it is something that gained some traction during City Hall, and ultimately our City Council voted last year to allocate $250,000 to support a guaranteed basic income pilot program. One of the reasons I was comfortable encouraging and supporting that was because I know we have an organization in town that can help us administer it. I don't think we could do this in the city, but we're lucky that we have a partner in Corazón, which really does have the capacity to implement this kind of idea. So that created a really exciting opportunity for us. It's not the only thing we did with those funds. In partnership with the Healthcare Foundation, thank you, Kim, in Healdsburg Forever, we also allocated about $200,000 just last month to support food programs in town, to support mental health in town, to support childcare, and to support direct assistance also through Corazón. So I think we've had a great opportunity to do a lot of good, but this is the really exciting and cutting edge opportunity. So it's not something we always do in city government, but we're really excited by the opportunity and we're eager to be a partner. So again, I thank all of you who are participating tonight. I'm no expert in this topic. I'm learning like the rest of us. So I'm just eager to really sit back and listen. But I just wanted to share some appreciation and affirm that the city is on board. The city is definitely going to be a partner and a supporter. And we're excited to see what this program can do to help members of our community who need that assistance right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. It's true. This partnership with the city is very important. We have at Corazón we have received a lot of support, and it would never be possible if the city was not involved in this ambitious program. So now I think we can go on, and Jesus, if we can share the presentation. Just to introduce the guaranteed basic income theme. That's the first time that we are having this broad and open community conversation about the theme. So let's see what guaranteed basic income and some kind of principles before we jump with our conversation. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, the first question, what is, for most of us who is here, what is GBI or UBI, right? Guaranteed Basic Income or Universal Basic Income. Those are programs. The G, it's for guarantee, U for universal, but both of them has this very, very particular characteristic of being resources, incomes that's unconditional, direct, and regular cash payment delivered to all residents to supplement existing public benefits and provide a basic, dignified level of support to stabilize family. These three characteristics go there, right? And that's the foundation of the UBI and GBI. It's universal because it's universal. That's available to all rather than subject to burdensome from end means testing. Although they may be universal with targeting, right? That's the universal component of that. It's unconditional. It means that there's no strings attached to that. It's not contingent to on labor market, training, or other activities, and is unrestricted. It allows recipients to decide how to spend funds. We are with the city. We have been planning and we have been talking about. And what is a GBI pilot? Why the pilot is important for us, especially when we do not have control to the whole population. And a guaranteed income pilot is a way that we can make the cash transfer to a limited group of participants for a specific period of time while we are collecting data, right? So with this data, we can process this data and make a better analysis, and even allow ourselves to align, to modify, and to expand in the capacity according to the data that we process, right? The guaranteed income pilot have different stakeholders, and each stakeholder has its own focus, and it's collecting and processing data together. And we are talking about the communities who participate, the policymakers, fundraisers, researchers, and communications, right? All those different teams, they have different focus, different roles in the pilot, but they all work together, right, to make sure that the program after the pilot is more solid and more sustainable. The pilot is also an opportunity for the cities and for the programs to address some challenges. And the challenges that we can address with GBI pilots, it's the automation of the automation of the work that's happening, and more and more, especially in agriculture setting like ours, precarious work, economic insecurity, and especially here after COVID and after the fires that had a disproportionate effect in our community, and growing wealth and income inequality. So what is going on? What is going on? What is the idea of our Healdsburg and guaranteed basic income? We have conducted focus groups, individual interviews, and dozens of conversations with lower income families over the last several months. And these conversations is actively informing our program design. The community is designing that with us. The challenges that we have: growing wealth and income inequality, persistent economic insecurity with poor safety net, racial disparities with Latino children 2 to 3 times as likely to live in poverty in Sonoma County. And the opportunities in front of these challenges are to invest in essential workforce, many of whom were left behind from the recovery, to recognize everyone's inherent dignity, to provide some income floor, and then to stabilize families and children. What's happening right now? We are sending a proposal to the City of Healdsburg to manage and implement a GBI program with the allocated funds to begin providing Healdsburg residents with financial support. At this point, the program, the proposed program, the way that we are designing, it's to enroll 50 Healdsburg low-income families with young children. Each of these families is going to receive $500 per month for a duration of 24 months, and the payments will be distributed monthly. So the objectives of this pilot, the program, is to provide an income floor, especially with families impacted by the poverty and COVID-19, to connect the families to the social safety net, to uplift stories and voices in our community that tends to be silenced, especially when they are vulnerable, and build the base of knowledge about basic income. Current status and next steps. We need a little bit more further community outreach and input. We are collecting more data with these community conversations that we are having. Finalize key program design features, outcomes, and partners. And upcoming final authorization from the Healdsburg City Council. That's going to happen very, very soon. So this was a little bit a summary of what we are doing and what guaranteed basic income is. And so now the next step is let's go and talk to our panelists tonight that I have an honor to present here. I would like to present Barbara Clifton Zarate. Barbara is the Director for Economic Opportunity at the Marine Community Foundation, where she oversees investment portfolios addressing equitable access to resources and opportunity. And she currently has oversight of Momentum, Marine's Guaranteed Income Demonstration Project. Welcome, Barbara. We also have here Katie Creeves. Katie is also the Director of the Sonoma County Workforce Investment Board. She oversees programs that provide job search, cash aid, supportive services, and other employment and training services to individuals and families. And her division also provides services to businesses and employers, such as hiring events, layoff mitigation, funding for new and incumbent worker training. Welcome, Katie. We also have Debbie Cibrian Gutierrez. Debbie has been a resident of Healdsburg for 10 years and is a mother of 3 young children, a homemaker, and a student. She's currently taking computer and financial classes and has been a long-time volunteer with Corazón Healdsburg. Welcome, Debbie. Christian Arana is another panelist. Hi, Christian. Good night. He strongly believes in the promises of America, and that begins first with California's estimated 15 million Latinos. As the Vice President of Policy at the Latino Community Foundation, Christian leads the Foundation's effort to advance policy solutions that will improve the lives and political power of California's Latinos. Thank you very much, Christian, again for being here. And last but not least, our friend and partner, Kim Bender. She's the Executive Director of the Healthcare Foundation of Northern Sonoma County, which she joined in March 2020. Kim brings a focus on social justice and over 20 years of experience in raising funds and developing programs. Welcome, Kim. Thank you all very much for being here. And let's go straight to our conversation. I talked a lot. I do not want to monopolize our conversation. So I have a first question for us, and I would like to hear a little bit about that. So the question is, what excites you about the potential of guaranteed basic income? What do you see as the potential impact of guaranteed basic income for Healdsburg families and children? Any volunteer who wants to start our conversation?
I'll jump in.
Thank you, Barbara.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Clayton. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I guess what excites me the most is the opportunity to shift federal policy, and that people would really have the financial resources to support themselves and their families. They'd have financial stability and security, potentially improved housing, a better quality of life, all these outcomes that we would expect to see from this floor that's being created. And I think we've seen the results from many of the demonstration pilots, and that's exactly the outcomes that are occurring.
Thank you, Barbara. Anybody else? Christian?
I'll kick it to Kim first.
I didn't see you, Kim.
That's all right. I'm so excited about the opportunity for economic, racial, and gender justice through a program like this. Women and children have suffered disproportionately, especially women of color and families of color. And this is an opportunity to address that directly and demonstrating trust and providing the dignity that you mentioned so often at Corazón, to help lift people up and give them the opportunity to live a healthy life.
Yeah, and I'll go next. I think from my perspective, there's obviously the economic positive consequences of this, right? People, like you were explaining, Gladen, like people receive this unconditional cash payment, and that can be used to pay for housing, for food. But the unintended consequences of that, and we saw this in Stockton, how maybe a family has less anxiety, less depression. I grew up the son of two working class families. To this day, I still see my parents when they go to the supermarket, making sure everything adds up, right? Because everything has to add up. And so to know that you have something like this, to give people that dignity, as you've been mentioning, to know that it's gonna be fine. The effect that does for one's mental health is super important.
Yeah, that's true, Christian. Yeah, and we can see models all over the world. Of course, with each model has their own characteristics and on kind of a set of problems. But what you said and came to is like this kind of stability, right? Debbie, you want to share? Where is she?
Sí, buenas tardes. A mí me emociona porque creo y siento que será un alivio, tanto económico como emocional, y así las personas, los hogares, van a poder cubrir necesidades esenciales, tanto para los niños como para pagos de renta, de biles. En estos tiempos estamos sufriendo crisis económicas en los hogares como personas de bajos recursos, que las mamás tuvimos que parar de trabajar ahora con la pandemia para estar al pendiente de los estudiantes. Y sí, será de gran ayuda, me emociona.
No, thank you very much, David. That's true. This relief, right, that the families are going to feel, and maybe because of that base, right, that we are building, the families will have more time and more stability to think about the next step for their own self-sustainability and self-reliance, which is very important. Katie, do you want to share with us about what excites you about the potential of a guaranteed basic income?
Sure. I also just want to second what everyone else has said. I think that, that is exactly matches my own feelings. The only other thing I could just add is really excited just about the shift in philosophy around, if you think about everything is commodified, everything is translated into what can be extracted, whether it's labor or from the earth or whatever for money. And the very aspect of this being unconditional, and even our public benefits programs, and I work for the County of Sonoma Human Services, it's everything is always in exchange for something else. If you want to get CalFresh, you want to get CalWorks, you've got to have, show that you're doing something. You have to prove it. And so I just think even the philosophy change, which I think the sort of the foundational piece is dignity, that it is and let's not make any mistake that even $500 a month is not going to lift it. That's just basic, but it is unconditional. And it's that unconditional part that I think is just from a humanity perspective is very healing in some way, that it's not in exchange for something. So I think that's just a really important part to acknowledge.
Oh, it resonates a lot to us here, Katie. Yeah, this unconditionality, if it's a word, that's one of the most powerful characteristics of this program. And Kim said that, and you second the component of human dignity, right? It's a human right. It's a natural right, right? And the state and the partners and everybody coming in the social net to make sure that those rights are guaranteed, right? It's a matter of humanity, which is very important. We are seeing a lot of different movements and cases and pilots programs now in the United States in the last years, right? And I would like to make a question to Barbara. Barbara, there's this case studies and the nationwide movement on Momentum. Barbara, can you share with us about Momentum and how did it start and what's the status of the program to date?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So in 2018, the foundation embarked on a project using human-centered design to really learn more about the lives of low-income moms in Marin County. And we really wanted to understand their path to self-sufficiency and think about how could we design ways to help them, more of them, really become successful in that journey. And so we spent a lot of time with moms across the county in different geographic areas of the county, and we met them in their homes and cafes. We listened, we met their families, we learned about their aspirations and dreams and the challenges that they experienced. And from that, we landed on the Book of Mom, which is really the outcome of that project. And then we launched into co-designing solutions with the moms. And it was interesting because the moms, you know, they were just really candid, and they told us, you know what, we don't need another program. It's not like we don't know how to balance our checkbooks. You know, there's no money in them. We just need money, just give us money. And we really listened and began to co-design together. And it was a really profound experience. And we also engaged experts in the field to learn more about guaranteed income, like Stanford Basic Income Lab, Economic Security Project, Jane Family Institute, the Mayors for Guaranteed Income. And we began to partner with Up Together, who's been really our primary partner. And then COVID hit. And you know, it sort of shifted things a bit, but we were fortunate that Up Together had the platform to deliver COVID relief dollars out to those that needed it. But we continued our planning, and we ended up forming an advisory council, a waiver work group, evaluation work group, and a communications work group. And we launched out in June of 2021 with 125 moms of color with children under 18 years of age. They started receiving $1,000 a month, and this demonstration project is for 2 years. The money's unconditional, no requirements, and how they use the money or how they leverage other resources that may be offered. And it was really important to us that the dignity and agency of the recipients be regarded and upheld. So that was you know, just top of the list. And our focus on mothers of color was really intentional, because when we look at the data and we look at poverty and who's been left behind, it's women of color. And many are working several minimum wage jobs and still not making ends meet. So we decided that we would focus on moms of color for this demonstration project. But there are all sorts of different populations that are being focused on across the nation, really testing different scenarios and populations and amounts. So there's a lot of learning. And we're really excited about now being 8 months in with the moms receiving the dollars, and we're partnering with social policy research associates to learn more from the moms. Again, interviewing the moms, it's primarily a qualitative evaluation. And our goals, you know, beyond the stabilizing of the families by getting them cash, is really to use the data and findings to shift local narratives, practices, and policies, and then to provide critical information for policymakers and support that statewide and national policy efforts, really advocating for that federal guaranteed income policy. So I'd say at the core, Momentum really poses the question of what happens when moms get a little bit more. And our ambition is that at the end of the pilot, their lives are improved and they're on the road to financial independence and emotional health.
That's great, Barbara. Great, good to hear that and learn more what's going on. And we are seeing, as I said a little bit before, we're seeing like a wave of cities and organizations not only talking but launching new pilot programs, right? And but there's different motivations, but what's your opinion about what do you think that's motivating those cities and these organizations to launch these pilot programs. And if you have any experience that you can share, what we are learning about these experiences on the nationwide spectrum.
Did you want me to jump
Anybody?
in?
Yeah, for anybody who wants to share their experience.
I talked a lot. I'll stand back.
Yeah, I can jump in. So we're starting to see a lot more conversations about this, both because there's a need to do it, because COVID-19 really just wrecked a lot of families, and now there's money to do it. The American Rescue Plan that President Biden signed almost a year ago, it was a $1.9 trillion bill that essentially sent billions of dollars all across this country. So California got about $26 billion. Local counties and cities in the state also got an additional $16 billion. And this money is very flexible. And part of the flexibility in this money is that states, counties, and cities are allowed to use this money to address the economic impact of COVID-19. So I'm glad this conversation is happening within Sonoma County, because San Mateo County just passed a similar universal basic income program for South San Francisco. The Latino Community Foundation, with one of our grantees in the Central Valley, we had a group of young people, like literally 16 to 24, going to the Merced City Council saying, we know you got American Rescue Plan money. We want to see a universal basic income program for young people. Long story short, they didn't get approved because what we're seeing is there are people that get it, and that there are people who ultimately get it if they understood the impact of it. If you look at those arguments at that city council in the Central Valley, there is a lot of, and I'm sure we've heard this a lot with universal basic income programs. It's like, well, what are they going to use this money for? Yeah. They're just going to use it for like fun. When that's really not the case, right? We're seeing example after example that when people are delivered with this money, they actually use it for the things that they need in order to survive in this country.
And what's interesting on that, Kristen, is it doesn't matter the ethnicity or the culture, because we see universal basic income pilots in all over the world. So it doesn't matter if it's in Europe, South America, here in North America. When we provide this base to families, right, they won't spend, and let's be explicit right here, they won't spend in drugs and alcohol or having fun, right? They want the stability, and that's the numbers show all over the world, this data. So it's very interesting that you're talking about that. Yes.
And I would just add to that, it's okay. The whole premise of being unconditional is that it is not for us to judge what it's spent on, and that is one of the most insidious features, I think, of public benefits programs, is that there's this whole sort of idea about, what people should do in terms of how they should live their lives. And so whatever somebody spends it on, that is none of our business. But just to add to that, I'll say, just in terms of the growing thrust of kind of these programs growing, also the State Department of Social Services has also earmarked a chunk of money to go out into local pilots for guaranteed basic income. And they have two population focus. One is on that transitional age youth, of young people coming out of foster care, and the second is for pregnant women. And so I think there are a lot of local jurisdictions also looking to leverage that with their ARPA, American Rescue Act funding, to try and make a go of it. And so I know the city of Santa Rosa is very serious about this as well, as is the county. And so I think that we're going to see more efforts in addition to Healdsburg's in Sonoma County, which is really exciting.
That's great.
I think, again, this shift in thinking around, directing how people must spend the money, and the transactional model that you talked about, Katie, there's a real shift in philanthropy as well, to recognize that people do know what's best for them. And they can do a very tailored, very personalized way of spending the money that they get, and that it's shifting the trust to them rather than an old, very paternalistic way of saying, we know best and we want to make sure you're spending the money in the right way. It's actually a very efficient way to address poverty. People can figure out how to spend the money. If it's on diapers or if it's on utilities or if it's on groceries, they know what they need. And they can then focus on getting a better job or figuring out how to go back to school. And that's the data is really showing that's how people use the money.
That's very true. Debbie, do you have I know that you had a lot of conversations about that unconditionality of these funds and this program. Do you want to share a little bit about your thoughts about this notion or the way that the families would spend that money?
Sí, pues sí me parece que sería de gran ayuda porque mientras esté ese dinero puede uno contar, las familias pueden contar con eso y aparte puede enfocar en desarrollarse personalmente, buscar maneras de cómo crear también a futuro para generar ingresos. Entonces sí será de gran ayuda para los hogares, para las necesidades de los niños, de las familias. Entonces me parece emocionante saber que va a haber esa ayuda para muchas familias que están necesitadas.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much. Other thing, it's about we're talking a little bit about like this preconception on this questioning around, especially it comes from people who are not suffering or people who are not marginalized, about where they're gonna spend this money and all those questions, but also in general, public benefits in our country have historically been tied or been accompanied with a social stigma around dignity and deservedness, right? In what ways should we think about the question of dignity, deservedness, and guaranteed income? Let's want to reflect a little bit about that.
I think we have to address head on a notion in our country that poverty is a moral lacking, that people who are poor and struggling financially have some kind of a lacking. And this is, it's really, we have a structural problem in our country. And the good news about that is we can address it with policies. It's not that people are bad or amoral. They've been structurally shut out of the opportunities that others have because of their race or their gender or their sexual orientation or many other ways that we've marginalized people, their language. So I think we have to shift our thinking. It's not, it's, if we can structurally address it, then we can, and through a program like UBI or GBI, then there's hope.
Anybody else wants to reflect a little bit on these questions of dignity and deservedness and vis-a-vis the guaranteed income?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, poverty is a policy failure. It's not a personal failure. And I think that's the narrative we need to shift. It's long past time to unbuckle the bootstraps narrative, right? Arguing that people experiencing poverty simply need to work harder. I know in what we've learned in engaging families here in Marin is, many are working 2, 3, 4 jobs. They're working. That narrative is false, and they're not making it. So, in fact, policies and laws actually perpetuate poverty and racial inequity, and they're written to the fabric of this nation. And this is what needs to shift. So, if guaranteed income really is an attempt to provide people with more resources and resources that have very few restrictions, it really demands us to have a conversation about deservedness, right? I think the very questions of, well, how much would it be? And who would get it? And how would we pay for it? These are sort of questions that run along the lines of who deserves more and who doesn't. And we need to unpack that a little bit and really understand that often these narratives about the poor are classist and sometimes racist. And, we don't ask senior citizens to tell us how they spend the Social Security check. We trust them that they know what to do with those dollars. We don't ask people who receive the child tax credit, are you going to spend it on your children? Show us how, these sort of things. But when we talk about assistance to people living in poverty, somehow we want to control how they spend that money, and we take away their agency. And there's this narrative about they don't know what to do with that money. They're not responsible. So these are sort of the things that these stereotypes we need to shift, because they're not rooted in reality, and they're often based on ideology, and it's just distorted perception. So just some thoughts there.
And I think that's exactly spot on. And even beyond, how are they going to spend the money? Even, do they deserve community support? And it really is, like this idea of individual responsibility as opposed to, the social contract that we have as human beings to, take care of each other. And so in the programs that, that come through my division, which include, the CalWorks program, Sonoma Works, and JobLink, but in particular Sonoma Works, which is part of the federal TANF program. In Sonoma County, I was just looking, we have a monthly cash grant that's averages $809. And in addition, so families get on average $809 a month. They get childcare paid for and a whole bunch of other stuff. The problem is that is all well and good, but if they earn even a dollar more than what the threshold is, they lose all of that. And so it ends up creating this sort of perverse kind of situation where you're locked in, you're locked into that $809. And so I think the thing about guaranteed basic income, because we can waive that additional grant, so it doesn't count against the family, it gives them that 24 months to still kind of add together the other benefits they're getting, get the additional $500, which could make the entire difference between, working 2 or 3 jobs to going back to school and, getting that next best thing, that personal development that Debbie was referring to. And so that to me is the magic of this, is because it really does mitigate what is hard baked into some of these public assistance programs, which is racist and classist and, sort of misguided. So I think that's a really exciting part of this as well.
That's true. Just reminding our folks, our audience tonight. It's about we're gonna have an audience questions and Q&A, questions and answer session in a little bit. So please start typing your questions at the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A button. Please start typing that we're gonna answer in a little bit. Implementation, guys. What do you think what kind of challenges do we foresee in designing and implementing a GBI pilot, and how can the community help support this pilot program in Healdsburg? Anybody who wants to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in. We kind of already went through this with the census, just to understand how do you involve people to do something or to sign up for something, right? So when we think about implementation, it cannot just be, hey, here's this link to this website, fill out your information, right? Because people either may not understand English, they may not have access to broadband, they may not have access to paperwork, right, needed to apply. We have to think about making the implementation of these programs as easy as possible in the languages spoken by the people that they feel most comfortable with, right? From our vantage point at the Latino Community Foundation, a community member is most likely to do something and understand something and trust a process if a local community organization is there to walk with them. Historically, we've invested in Corazón Healdsburg and other nonprofits, especially within Sonoma County. If these organizations don't have the resources to carry out the awareness campaigns, the education, to make those families feel comfortable signing up for this, it's just going to really complicate a lot of things, and potentially prevent people from signing up or being eligible for these programs. So kind of like what we were talking about before, not only do we know it's good policy, it has to be good politics as well. It's like we need our elected officials to understand that not only do you need to pass these policies, you need to fund it with the resources to actually carry out the policy, but the implementation by groups like Corazón Healdsburg to carry it out, to make the dream a reality.
Any other reflections on the challenges to implement?
Curious to hear from Barbara how you overcame your challenges.
So, when we were designing the demonstration project, the board of the foundation asked me, what keeps you up at night? And for me at that time, it was the potential impact to public benefits. And I'm incredibly grateful that the state of California has granted a waiver to Marin County for this demonstration project for both CalWorks and CalFresh. So that no longer keeps me up at night. Now really it is focusing on the narrative work and how do we illustrate what's actually backed by data and what's backed by bias? How do we provide evidence really that will be sufficient to really move guaranteed income at the federal policy level? And how do we give that information to our decision makers, our policy makers? So that's where I'm at right now.
Anybody else? We are starting having some questions. I see that we have a question and Holly's helping us to answer that. But there were two questions that I saw here. It's about the program itself. It's about enrollment on the families enrollment here in our Healdsburg program. And now the question from Clemencio is how families are going to be selected. We are finalizing the criteria with the city and here with Corazón and other partners. And as soon as we finalize all the criteria, the selection process, and how the families are going to apply, we are going to propagate all this information through all the proper channels, communication channels, social media. We're going to bring the community. We're going to repeat those kind of community conversations to make sure that every single family have access to that pilot program, which is a great part of that too, is make sure that people are informed and know that's going on. Is there any other reflection from any panelist about the principles or about the importance, other than we just discussed the importance of GBI? What if you have any kind of experience that you observed, and how after the pilot was finalized, how impact those families? Or do you guys have any shared experience on the post-pilot phase of the program?
Well, we're not post-pilot yet. We're only 8 months in, but we have begun interviews with the moms, and it's been heartwarming to hear their stories of how these dollars have impacted their lives. As an example, one mom that I spoke with shared that prior to receiving the guaranteed income, she was living in a small apartment with 2 other families, her family and 2 other families. And because of the guaranteed income, her family was able to move out and get their own place. That's really significant. So we're hearing a lot of stories of how lives are changed, and a lot of tears from the moms, of gratitude and just the profound impact it's having on their lives and their children's lives.
Thank you, Barbara, for sharing that. Kim, you?
Oh, just there's such really interesting data emerging around the actual impact of poverty on on brain development and of course on health, with so much data on the impact of poverty on health. But the impact of the recent stimulus money, there was this article recently in the New York Times about the positive impact of having money and the relief of stress on the brain development of the babies that were born during that period because of the moms having less stress. So I think that's something that will have a lifelong impact. So although the pilot might be short and we hope that we can affect big policy changes at the state and federal levels, even a pilot can have a lifelong impact on people's development and their life outcomes.
And that's a great segue for our question here that we just received. It comes from the audience and it says, what would it mean for this pilot to be successful? What would it take for it to go from pilot to actual implementation? That's a good question, very good question. Anybody?
Well, I would wager a guess, money. And, being able to sort of demonstrate from the pilot how effective it has been locally, even though there's reams and reams of data that show it, and we really shouldn't need to show that anymore because it just is. But I would guess still at the local level, local policymakers would really be swayed by seeing even early days signs of success and then money.
Yeah, I'll echo what Katie just mentioned on the money part, and just reiterate the American Rescue Plan. So counties and cities got the first batch of money last year. There's another pot of gold coming in the next couple of months. And so local elected officials are going to have a further discussion about what do we do with the rest of this. And the flexibility that this money is providing these localities, that you can go up until 2024 to allocate it, going all the way to 2026 to actually spend it, right? So if we're thinking about doing something like this right, there's already an infrastructure set in place to have these conversations, and I'm glad Corazón Healdsburg is doing this because, again, this money's flexible. And quite frankly, in the middle of a midterm election year, there kind of needs to be a political will to ask elected officials across any level of government, like, how are you using this money? Because I'm hearing that in this county over there or that city over there, they're using that money to help families like mine. I would like to see that here. So there is a moment to make this topic number one in 2022.
Yep. Well, Kim, you want to add something?
Well, I think the other way that we could measure the success of this pilot is, have we changed people's hearts and minds around poverty and around people's deservedness and our commitment to the humanity and dignity. And I think we're in the midst of that change. And so there might be value in surveys that would measure whether people feel differently after this program and when they hear the stories of the impacts.
One component, like internally, and now that Jesus and Corazón team is working very hard, is one very important component is the research, right? Is the data collection and the methodology that we need to have in place in order to ask the right questions, to understand the data points that we want to collect and to understand in the community. So we make sure that this infrastructure is in place too. So it also, of course, requires money and dedication and time. But I'm curious, Debbie, what for your perspective as being a mother and a resident of Healdsburg, what success look like in this program? What would be successful for you or for the family, or the way that you see?
Pues primero que nada, creo que en las familias habrá como esa tranquilidad de poder contar con un ingreso que les ayude a estabilizar la crisis que ha ocasionado después de la pandemia. Y pues en segundo, como les digo, es importante que las personas aprendamos a desarrollarnos personalmente, superación personal, y cuando uno está trabajando realmente gana uno poquito y no hay ese tiempo para poder dedicar a su persona. Entonces sí personas van a tener la opción de poder elegir entre seguir trabajando y dando a tus niños a cuidar cuando a veces no te queda realmente mucho y estás descuidando tus hijos y no estás generando lo suficiente. Será de gran ayuda. Me emociona mucho, sé que muchas familias van a estar sumamente felices con esa ayuda.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Well, everybody, we are now at the end of this conversation. Again, I would like to thank you very much, everybody who is here, Kim, Katie, Barbara, Christian, Debbie, and also, of course, thank you very much, Julie and Ashley, who made this bilingual conversation a success. Thank you very much for the interpretation services. And is there any final remarks, final words from you guys before we say goodbye to everybody?
Thank you, Corazón Healdsburg.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Mayor Ozzy, who was here with us, who is supporting this program, and again, Jeff K. and everybody from the city. Thank you very much. You all have a very good night, and we're gonna be coming soon to talk more about GBI. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.